Hello brick fans, today I am coming at you with a video of my rebuilt Brickmania Hind helicopter. Just to clarify, this is not the same helicopter that I featured in my first ever Lego YouTube video. That was designed by a guy who calls himself the Darth Designer. That was a completely different helicopter. Speaking of that last helicopter, it was such a huge challenge that most of the Lego builds that I'd ever built since then have been pretty easy by comparison, and it really pushed the limits of what I learned how to do. This Hind helicopter was actually designed by Brickmania. And Brickmania designed 3 different Hind helicopter Lego designs. The first one was in 2016, the second was in 2020, and the third in 2022. The original design was very expensive when it came out. It was offered only as a kit, actually, and it cost around I think it was nearly $700 when they released that. It could have been more than that. This model here is actually Brickmania's second release. This was their 2020 version of the Hind. This was originally just a dark tan and dark gray model. About a year or two later, I think in 2022, 2021, they released the instructions for it for just, $15. So what happened was, after I built this in the original dark tan and dark gray, just straight from the box kit, it stood on my shelf for a long time and relatively safe, and then Then a year ago, I went through a house remodel, and between that and my 3-year-old son, very few of my Lego builds remained intact, including this one, which was basically smashed to atoms. So when I rebuilt the Hind, I was thinking, hey, wouldn't it be nice if I could rebuild this Hind but then use some of the Mega Blocks colors that I have from some of my other builds that got destroyed, and then incorporate them into the camo pattern on this helicopter. So as you can see, I've rebuilt it mostly according to the same Brickmania instructions, but I've incorporated some gunmetal colored tiles that are from Mega Blocks, and some of the army green, from Mega Blocks, and also from maybe some generic Chinese Lego kits, or Chinese brick kits, I should say. And I've thought maybe to add some visual interest to the otherwise just dark gray and tan camo. And I think that I'm quite pleased with the effect. As far as the playability aspects are concerned, you've got the main helicopter blades can rotate, and so can the tail rotor. There you go. The cockpits can open and close. You see there's a Mega Block control dial there, and so there's this guy, although this thing is supposed to swivel open, but I kind of used generic bricks for this, so the clutch is kind of strong, and so it kind of comes off whenever I do it, but theoretically it should just open and close quite freely. So as you can see, the helicopter does have doors that can open and close, these little side doors here. That is a nice play feature because you can maybe have a little diorama where you can have soldiers exiting the helicopter and taking a nice picture of that, or you can pose the soldiers with guns, kind of in a maybe forming a defensive perimeter, and that's kind of a nice little play feature. However, if you noticed, the cabin of the helicopter is just a little short, and so you can't really stand your minifigures up unless you really try to get creative with it. And also, if you notice, the interior of the helicopter, the studs are upside down, so there isn't any friction to kind of clip your minifigures even in a sitting position. So I suppose you could put your minifigures inside the helicopter and transport them in the helicopter, but they'd kind of be loose and rattling around. The landing gear supports the helicopter just fine. And the landing gear is retractable, but the rear landing gear, it's really kind of a chore to put away. So I'd have to actually kind of remove the door and stow the whole wheel in. So it's really actually more trouble than it's worth. It's better just to have the landing gear kind of out the whole time. And also, you can't really roll the model that much if you want it to stay, because the tire kind of rubs up against the landing gear door when you're when it's out, and so you can't really roll the model across the table. But it's still a nice display model, and it's good that the landing gear can actually support the weight of the model, which is significant. So I'm going to end this video with a couple questions that may or may not be on your mind. So the first question being, how do the other two versions of the Hind, Mi-24 Hind that Brickmania released, differ from this one in appearance? So the answer to that question is, the first ever Brickmania Hind that was released by Daniel Siskind was just dark tan and dark green camo pattern. Now, the reason why that was so expensive, I think, is because dark green Lego pieces, I guess, are a bit more rare. The Lego dark green, that is. And they probably used a lot of rare pieces for that model. Maybe the Lego one, I'm thinking of the Lego 1x2 tile in dark green, which can be pretty expensive. The 2022 release, the newer version of this guy, is a beautiful Ukrainian colored Hind with Ukrainian markings on it. So it's got a beautiful blue and yellow stripe along the bottom of the fuselage, and it's got this stunning white kind of a stripe down the back of the tail, and it's got it's gone back a little bit to a gray, a dark gray and a Lego dark green camo pattern. It's really quite striking. Question number two, if you were to purchase the instructions for this version of the Hind, could you rebuild the Hind to look like the Hind from Brickmania's prior two releases, or other two releases, I should say? For the most part, yes. If you purchased the instructions for this particular Hind and you built it in, let's say you built it in Lego Studio, it would just be a small matter of swapping out some of these tiles, digitally in Lego Studio to get the look of, the other two Hinds, which definitely look nice, especially the Ukraine colored one. If you were to be fairly familiar with Lego Studio, and let's say it wouldn't be a problem to rebuild this design in those colors. The only thing is that with those other two Hinds, instead of this twin-barreled cannon, they have the more classic Hind cannon that looks kind of like a little Gatling gun. Now, as far as I know, in the most recent Brickmania release of the Hind, that one uses a proprietary piece that looks like a realistic kind of gun. And I don't think it's for sale yet, so you couldn't get a Lego piece that looked exactly like it. But I think that you could substitute a Lego piece called an Axle 5.5L with a stop, and I will leave a picture of the part number for that thing. And that you can also, if you were to rebuild, a cannon underneath the this part of the Hind to look like the other models. And I think that piece would help. If you found this video helpful or interesting in any way, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, if there is a Lego design that you're interested in buying and you haven't purchased it yet, maybe it's a little pricey, or maybe you're worried that if you spend money on Lego pieces, and will the design come together for you, and maybe you'd like to see me review it first, yeah, please let me know in the comments section. So happy building, and thank you for your support.